Hello everybody and welcome back to artofdino.com and saveearth.us. I've got an interesting article that I found today from October 10th, 1925, and it's called Excavators Find Ancient Subterranean Prison in Richmond, Virginia. Row of Dungeons Brought to View in Yard of Tobacco Company. So I thought this story was very interesting, brought to mind a lot of different things, and it brought to mind some cool visions, so I wanted to create some AI art for you guys to take a look at to go along with the story. But either way, very interesting. In Virginia, I'm always fascinated by it because it's one of the oldest places in America on the map. There's got a strange history when you look at the old books talking about Virginia, and you never know how old the things underneath everything are, and after or before the flood, the mud flood or whatever covered everything. But whenever they find things, it's always so interesting, whether they find a cave of treasure or giant skeletons of old animal remains, or in this case a dungeon of prisons, which is very interesting because how old could this possibly be? And is it exactly a prison? I mean, when they dug it up, they think that, but maybe it could be something else from another time where we don't even know, or like a house, even housing at some point for different people. I don't know what it looked like. I don't know. They don't have any pictures or anything, but if anyone knows any more to this story, if you're from Virginia and you've heard of this, then tell us a little more. But otherwise, I'm going to read it for you and enjoy the imagery, and again, I'll chime in from time to time about what I think, but strange happenings in America, and there's no telling how old this stuff is, and it sounds really interesting. So here we go. Grim and grisly relics that bear testimony to the existence of a subterranean prison, which included a torture chamber, were unearthed in Richmond, Virginia, October 1st. A gang of excavators working under foreman E.L. Sechrist of the Wise Granite and Construction Company in the yard behind the new plant of the Laris Brothers Tobacco Company, 22nd and Carey Streets, came upon the corridor into which a row of 3 dungeons opened. Sechrist summoned jailer Harry Heckler, magistrate George Frank, and Officer Paul Jones from the office of the Henrico Sheriff, and together they explored the interesting find. The excavation underway is designed to widen the space between the Henrico County Jail Yard and the big tobacco factory. The Laris property runs flush with the line on which the rear wall of the old Henrico jail, many years ago raised to make space for a jail yard, once stood, and its grade is 15 feet below the grade of the county property. The workmen were cutting into the earth bank when the row of dungeons was exposed. So again, it's more kind of proof to me that this modern era built upon foundations that were already here. And that is a big thing, because foundations, again, when you set a foundation, you have to do a lot of work to make sure everything's strong. And so people that are coming into a new place will want to use existing foundations, especially if they've been proven, if other ones have proven to be strong enough. So it saves a lot of work, and it seems like they did that all over the country. And in order to do that, when you build up on something, you lose the history of it by reclaiming the year that it's built to make it something completely more new than it was, when actually the ruins could be and the foundation could be ancient or way more unknown, especially in America. So here we go. Massive, so the workmen were cutting into the earth bank when the row of dungeons was exposed. Massive iron gates and windows came into the grim picture as the excavators plied picks and shovels. The metal fixtures of the prison had been buried probably 200 years. Later research into the history of the place disclosed, yet much of it was in a fairly good state of preservation. One of the most interesting trophies of the hunt that followed the discovery of the old underground prison was an iron wall stake, which was cemented into one of the huge walls of the middle of the 3 cells. At the end of the stake was an iron ring. Attached to the ring was a wrist iron or cuff, which was locked. The appearance of the locked handcuff indicated that the prisoner to whose arm it was attached was liberated only by death. Doesn't sound like a fun place. The fastenings of gates and windows gave way as the earth about them was loosened by the diggers, and they were easily removed. About a ton of the ironwork, which was not in a crumbling state, was removed to the yard of the Henrico jail by jailer Heckler. The collection of relics unearthed included various pieces of metal which could not be identified as to the uses they had served. So again, that strikes me as something older than 200 years, because you usually know what a lot of stuff is, especially if it's a tool. If it's a couple hundred years old, that's kind of things don't change too much usually. But if they're unknown and mysterious, then they could be pieces or broken pieces from something, but they could be from a civilization and a people that we don't know about. There are rods, stakes, locks, rings, bolts, complete cell doors of massive construction, and complete windows. The cell windows are of crosswork iron pattern, similar to prison windows now in use, but notable for their thickness. The cell doors are of the same ponderous design. Further interesting exhumations are expected, since the diggers have not penetrated the earth bank beyond the Laris property line. Whatever new finds may be made will be on the property of the county of Henrico and under the jail yard. Samuel P. Waddell, who has been clerk of the Henrico Circuit Court since it was created and prior to that time employed at the courthouse for many years, viewed the subterranean dungeons with keen interest. Mr. Waddell said that during his services of half a century at the courthouse, he had never come upon records giving any intimation of the existence of the underground chambers just brought to light. Archives of the county, he said, show that the original courthouse and jail were built in 1752, but it clearly was apparent that the dungeons were constructed in the hillside many years earlier. The tract on which the Henrico County property stands is made ground, the fills being made to bring the courthouse site to the grade of Main Street. So again, made ground. So many of our cities in this 1800s and 1900s period are considered made ground. Boston is one of the biggest. They used to have formerly hills that they took out, completely gutted, dug them up, and spread them all over the place. So this could be done so easy. It was done all the time back then. They were making this stuff, piling it on top because they knew that they did not want people to keep going under. But inevitably, people did keep finding things under, and but nowadays it's been built on so much that our chances of finding stuff are getting slimmer and slimmer depending on how much they piled on top of the old world that they don't want us knowing about. But here we go. Last paragraph says, the row of dungeons begins at a point 100 feet westward from 22nd Street and 125 feet back from the Main Street building line. Each of the cells is 8 feet wide and the dungeon walls of granite are 40 inches thick. The space along with the excavating gang is cutting was evidently a corridor into which the dungeons opened. So this place could be massive and I hope they still excavate it. I'll have to look a little deeper, and anyone out there as well, especially if you live in Virginia, dive a little deeper into this and see what you can find and include anything in the comments below, because I love hearing about this stuff. But Virginia, all this stuff, all the East Coast just has such an ancient past. It's unbelievable. Like, there's no doubt that things were here before Columbus, even well before Columbus possibly, and the stone things that they built. And it's just insane when people think that no one hit this island, hit this massive continent in their sailing vessels. It's just absolutely foolish. And so who knows how advanced the civilization was, but they were at a point where they had prisons. So there must have been some law and order. And again, it might not be a prison, it might be something else, but that kind of thing with the ring and the iron, whatever that was, that sounds a little prison-like. And the bars, and that's kind of tough to divide. But I mean, I guess it could be if there was a battle, a war, there could be, or an invading force, there could be something for them to be locked up. But just the fact that they were able to make these things so much, so frequently, so all over the place, iron gates, elaborate iron things, like this is proof that a civilization was not just a minor one that was here a long time ago. And I guarantee again that this find probably ended up getting gobbled up by the Smithsonian and by a lot of other people, and people took the stuff and dispersed it all over the place in private collections and gone. And I'm really curious about what is there now at this property. If there's any sign of this, maybe they again just crushed it and erased it from history. This is only 1925, so there's got to be some lingering some story here to keep going with. So I hope I can find it. If I do, I'll include a little addition to this video. But again, just makes you think and wonder what the heck happened in America and how much are they not telling us? How much there's a difference between what they don't know, which might be a lot of this stuff. Like, they may have never thought that there'd be a prison here, but then somebody somewhere knows what the answers are and what was buried here and what the goal of us piling massive amounts of dirt and things on top of it and using their foundations and claiming credit for things that weren't ours. Like, they know. The people that are in control know. We are just not privy to the information. But if we keep digging, we will get closer and closer and closer. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope it sparked the imagination a little bit, and let's see where it goes. Anyone out there, add to it if you can. Bless you all.